Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Speaking with Water. I am completely honored to have Scott Sullivan here for the episode 10. Scott is just an incredible dude. He has been a legendary surfer, professional snowboarder, lensman, musician, entrepreneur, and he grew up on the beaches of Rhode Island, went on to surf the most epic waves in the world, was a pro snowboarder in the 90s, and today owns a killer pizza shop. We find Scott on the North Shore of Oahu today. Scott, welcome. Thank you in advance for your time, and I hope you're well. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Sean. Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on here. It's a beautiful day out here on the North Shore. It's a little bit smaller today. I've already been down to Sunset Beach and jumped in the water. Came back, got ready for the podcast, said, honey, kick the kids, go back down to Sunset. It's beautiful. Get them in there, and I'll meet you guys a little bit later. So yeah, happy to be here.
Epic, epic. So you've been out there for a few weeks. I've been watching the Pipe Masters on the TV. It's just been looking phenomenal, insane, amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen lately?
Yeah, so we arrived here in the beginning of January, and leading up to it, people have been saying, oh, it's raining, it's cold, it's windy, it's you're gonna be bummed when you get here. And we got here and it turned into 80 degrees and pipeline just started firing. It went on the biggest swell benders I think that most people have seen in years. The backdoor shootout started right about when I got here, and that was absolutely phenomenal. They had incredible surf, incredible talent. The teams were just so stacked with great surfers. Got to shoot that out in the water from the beach, saw some amazing stuff with the men, saw some amazing stuff with the women. And that kind of kicked off the trip. It's been a month I've been here so far, and it goes by so quick. It just hasn't stopped, when I'm out here, it's just go. We're either, if the surf's pumping, then I'm trying to shoot down a pipe or Waimea or places like that. I'm trying to surf myself. I'm trying to keep my kids in the water, trying to just really maximize the program here. I try to get up every day, just at daybreak, and get out there and stay out there all day long. Come back home, crack a beer, and then fall asleep, So really try to make the most of it.
Yeah, the North Shore lifestyle, I've been out there a number of times myself. It's just, you go, you leave, and you just cannot wait to get back to it. And I know the people who do live there, they just they're living the dream constantly. So I want to get a little deeper with your current lifestyle and how you operate and everything, but let's go back a little bit. I want to turn back the clock, and I'd like to know a little bit about your beginnings. Where have you been, and how did specifically your growing up in Rhode Island shape who you are today?
So I grew up in a pretty traditional East Coast family, Catholic, Republican, of the kind of old mindset. And I just, in school, there kind of wasn't, I don't really know how to say it, but it's sometimes there's limited options of what you can do and what you can dream, growing back in those kind of environments. And I really feel like surfing was something that really kind of saved my life and set me up on the path that I've been on. I started surfing. I got my first board when I was 9 years old, but at the beaches. Obviously, that's a summer thing because the winters are so darn cold. The winters we were a ski family, which for me then became snowboarding when snowboarding became a viable thing. And I grew up with the school thing. I was never really that great at school. I did some sports. I kind of struggled with grades and stuff, but it wasn't through lack of trying. It was just kind of my mind. The way my mind works doesn't really fall into that focus on the academic kind of thing. So that kind of put me at odds with some of the system out there. So I did struggle for years trying to find out where I fit in, what was wrong with me, why I couldn't, focus in school. Later on, it turned out, I had ADHD, which I've learned to use to my advantage these days. But, at a young age, for me, just being out there and active and surfing and skiing and snowboarding, it's what I loved to do. And it's kind of where my friends came from, and I kind of had forged my path through that. And it was tough back then, and it was in the 80s. People didn't really understand that it isn't what it is these days as an accepted part of our culture. The board culture was still growing. It's still pretty underground, a universe apart from what it is today. Now you can kind of say, hey, I'm in the surf industry, snow industry, and it's a pretty accepted thing, and people are pretty excited about it. I think a lot of people really relish that and want to live that lifestyle. But for me growing up, I really had to kind of fight tooth and nail for that, to develop that lifestyle. And it really wasn't until later, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, that I really began to find the friend set and the support system that really kind of brought me along in that.
Let's stick a little bit on the younger part with the discovering of the ADHD, because personally I can relate to that. I was diagnosed with a learning disability and ADHD myself in the 90s, and at that time they had just discovered what that was. And you touched upon, you were in the 80s before they even knew what to do. So you're kind of in this realm of, you don't really know why it is that you have a hard time paying attention, but you also didn't know that that was almost like a fundamental reason why you were to become such, and you were at the time a creative person, I'm sure. So you look back on the history of people who have had learning disabilities. You have your Albert Einsteins, and today some of the most well-known entrepreneurs have ADHD and learning disabilities. So with that said, going forward, you ventured into punk rock. I read. At what point did that come into your realm of being? And can you kind of give us a time? Because when I was growing up in the 90s in Washington, D.C., I found the punk rock scene there to be just like a lifeblood of coolness. And just a vibration that gave such awareness to what I was feeling inside, and then an outlet to it that was positive. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm going to step over here and shut the door because they got the blower going outside. I'll be right back.
No worries.
All right, great. So that's, those are great points that you're making. And it was true back in the 80s when I was growing up. ADD, ADHD, they weren't even really things that people knew about. They first started to discover them, and then that's when they were trying to put kids on medications for that, which luckily, they tried a couple little times, but I never went for it, and I just never really went that route of going through the medications for that. It was frustrating, and I can understanding from, like, say, a parental perspective, or teachers and stuff at that time, which they don't know the stuff either, but they just can't get ahead, and they can't be taught the same way, and they can't learn the same way. But then they have these exceptional abilities. I actually kind of believe that, like, the ADD thing is actually a gift, and I just think it has to be nurtured, and you have to learn how to use it, and the people around you have to learn how to work with that. It comes with highs and lows, and you have to know when to use the highs and then when to step back and when to take a break. you know, because a lot of times that's coupled with depression and stuff, and a misunderstanding of things and who we are and what's wrong with me and this and that. But I just think that the more we're learning about it, really, I think some of the great figures of our society and culture have, you know, have had that, have had, you know, learning disabilities. I don't even want to call them learning disabilities, you know, because they're kind of learning abilities in some ways.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I think we're not alone with that, you know. So it just takes, you just have to have a support system around you and people that understand that and what makes you different. You know, I never, you know, being an artist from where I came from wasn't an option. That wasn't a thing you could really do, you know. It's even taken me most of my life to just say, hey, you know what, I am pretty artistic. I thrive in that, you know. I thrive in taking the time to visualize things in my head and have ideas and go after them and slap paint up around on things and bring colors and light and working with all that stuff. You know, at this point in my life now, I'm like, I realize I am an artist, but I've been lucky enough to stick to and follow my passions that I've had for most of my life. And having those passions is something that is an integral part of success for me. I feel like without my passions that I kind of don't really have, you know, a guiding light to follow. And lucky for me, surfing and snowboarding and music have all been huge things that have guided me through that. So you mentioned the punk rock thing, and punk rock was huge. Yeah, like when I look back, you know, so I'm growing up, I'm a teenager in the mid '80s, and I'm in New England, and we have all that influence from bands like Minor Threat, you know, the whole Discord movement, the Bad Brains, the New York scene. We had an incredible scene up in the Northeast, you know, and then you had the West Coast scene with the bands like Descendants and 7 Seconds and Misfits and those guys. But
I got chills right now. I got chills talking.
Yeah, right. You know, and it's like, and those, I think there was a lot of kids in that scene that were dealing with the same kind of stuff. And it just, you know, there were some great people like Ian McKay that just led these movements and showed, it was the DIY thing, first of all, you know, and that has become like the DIY thing that spawned out of hardcore and punk rock became like a full-on life mantra for me. And watching those guys start their own record label, start their own shows, their own zines, all that stuff is phenomenal. You know, and regionally we had great bands. We had Verbal Assault from Newport, Rhode Island, which was incredibly influential with me. Pete Kramiak, the guitar player. I tried to like embody everything that he did as a guitar player, you know. So, and these were just kids that were like a few years older than I was at the time. But being able to go to a show on Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m., an all ages show at like the Rocket in Providence, and just blend with all these kids was a really, you know, empowering thing, you know. And through that, you mix the skateboard kids, the surf kids, the punk rock kids, you know, and then even within that, there was like the skinheads, you know, and then like the hippies, and it was like a real melting pot of people. As time has gone on, I just look and just I feel incredibly fortunate to have grown up in that period, because I think the ideals and a lot of things have kind of gotten co-opted and watered down over the years. You know, not in a bad way, just kind of in a natural, you know. At that time, we were like, if somebody had a mohawk walking across the street, there was like shock factor to that, you know. People would be flipping you off, you know, as you're crossing the street, and just like it made people uncomfortable. Now that's such a part of our society.
Oh, you look at a Disney movie, like, I don't know if you've seen Cruella.
Oh, yeah.
I'm watching it with my kids, and punk rock, then the neighbor kids are coming out with mohawks, you know, so it's really called mainstream.
It really has, you know, and I think that there's not to take anything away from like the punk style and the aesthetic, which I think is great. But as I kind of got older, I started to realize that punk rock was more than just what you look like or what you listen to. It really was an attitude, and it's how you fit in and forged your path through our world, through society. And you don't have to have nose rings and tattoos and listen to, just grinding hardcore music all day long. You can live that other ways. Joe Strummer from The Clash is a huge influence on me. I like to say that he's my boss, and I kind of just look to Joe and, Joe's ethic of how he did things and the conviction with which he spoke. And his music styles changed with The Clash, like radically, and was one of the great things about The Clash with their reggae influences and their soul influences and, their rock and roll influences, all of it. And they melded it all into one. And as Joe got older, before he passed away, he was working with the Mescaleros, and the albums were phenomenal. They embodied all this world beat and all this stuff. And I remember reading some stuff on some forums and people just ripping them apart, just being like, this isn't punk rock. Well, it's like, oh, you guys are so missing the point. Like, punk isn't this sound or this or that. Punk's in here, and it's just how you approach life and how you treat people and how you make it all work for you. And at the root of that is the DIY, the do-it-yourself. And that is just kind of how I've tried to live my life. There's a slogan a mantra that I live by, and it's make it happen. And you just have to make it happen. Hard work is integral. You have to work hard at what you want to do, and you have to maintain a vision and focus to achieve that, because people will try to tear you down from that all the time. There's a lot of negative people out there that don't want to see you succeed for some reason or another. And people get caught up in what everybody else is doing. But it's just, at the end of the day, it just comes down to what you do and how true you are to yourself and how you affect other people during your time on this planet.
So you're at this stage in your life before you've done all the great things. You're late adolescence. It's before you've made it to the Rockies. It sounds like the punk rock kind of gave you that fuel to get out of your area of Rhode Island and make it. Excuse me, I have a junior here. What were the precipices that led you to be like, all right, I'm out of here. This is where I'm going. Give me some factors and a case in point.
Okay, so during 5 years of high school, I went to 4 different schools. They just couldn't deal with me, and I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't into drugs. I wasn't drinking. I surfed, I skated, I liked music, and I just didn't fit. But I just went from one school to the other. Through Catholic schools, all that. I ended up in a year-round juvie kind of school out in Western Massachusetts, out in the Berkshires. It was called DeSisto School. And it was just year-round. And you had to go through there and go through all these therapeutic levels to like level 1, level 2, level 3, and you would have the staff and your peers, everybody kind of vote to like get you to the next level. I ended up running away several times from there and going living on the road, which was kind of a thing people were doing. You would just kind of hit a wall in there and kind of just get more crazy than they thought you were, and then I'd run away. I eventually ran away one too many times, and I had been living in Rhode Island, sleeping out in the woods. It was snowing, like still surfing, trying to work at Burger King, stuff. Out of California, my parents found out, they had picked up, and I was put in an actual mental hospital out in Chicago. And that was at the end of my 17th year. And I spent 3.5 months on the 3rd floor of this hospital on Lakeshore Drive with other kids that were kind of in the same situation as me. Some were, some of them were actually kind of pretty crazy. And I came away from the whole thing feeling like I had just learned how to manipulate people to say what they wanted to hear to get out. So I got out of there and I went back to the DeSisto school. I agreed to go back to finish out the year there. I'd worked with them to develop a skateboarding program. We worked with some builders and we built this incredible skateboard ramp, like a 40-foot wide, 8-foot tall, half pipe, beautiful. We finished it and we got in trouble at school, not me, some of the other kids too. And they took it away from us. And then at that point I was 18 and I just said, screw it, I'm leaving. And I just kind of went on my own, lived on my own for like the next 6 months. And then I worked with my parents, came home, and I finished my final year of high school in Rhode Island. And at that point, it was quite strange. I was like, I felt like I had lived a pretty crazy life up to that point. And my senior year of high school, it still wasn't an academic thing really, but I was just, my experiences had been pretty vast at that point. And I made it through that. And I just kind of started diving more into the snow and the surf. Case in point, I'd actually been taken away from the hardest thing going to those schools and the juvie schools and stuff was that I couldn't surf. I got taken away from all my friends and just put out there in the middle of nowhere. So that sucked. And that was a really hard thing. I developed a lot of resentment based around that. And it really stemmed from people not understanding how to work with me. Like I said, I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't violent. I wasn't into drugs or anything. I just wanted to live.
Did you know yourself at this point? Like, did you know you were good? It just other people didn't know how to be with you.
No, I didn't. I didn't. So it was pretty hard. So I had real confidence issues that followed me, probably still follow me to this day. Self-confidence. I didn't understand that. I didn't. I just thought I was broken, and I wasn't fitting in, and I had my small group of friends, but everybody else I was pretty freaking resentful of, and that's where punk rock again came in and showed us a light and a safe place to be with like-minded people, and for me, that's probably the first inclination that finding like-minded people following the same passions as you do in your life is the key to success, and it doesn't even have to be financial success. It's just, but surrounding yourself with the people that love what you love is so important.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Then explain to me the bridge that took you into such a fundamentally powerful point in snowboard history. You're coming from a traumatic, sounds like, experience. You then move into just what from the outside in seems like, if you had a time machine to go back to one period of snowboarding, it would probably be the 90s before the mountains were opened up to snowboarders. You probably had to hike around a lot of different out of bounds locations and saw just amazing things. How did you get from this one spot that was so negative to this other spot that was so positive?
So yeah, I grew up, like you're saying, golf courses, like little hills. Rhode Island's pretty flat, but anything that had a pitch to it, we would try to ride. Yagu Valley was kind of the go-to spot. I would go up to Vermont, ride like that, and it was like you had to pass a test to ride some spots. Other spots you couldn't ride. Stratton up in Vermont was great. Burton was right there. They kind of really created the program happening even back then. So there were some great things happening. Snowboarding really, I really got infected by the whole vibe with snowboarding, and I decided to move out to Colorado. And that was a really kind of a hard decision for me because I did love the ocean and I loved surfing, but I just said, I just remember sitting with myself one time going, I should just try something. I should move away. I should just go for it. I should just, so I'll move to Colorado. I had a friend out there that already went to school out there. And so I landed in Boulder in the early 90s. And I just landed in such an incredibly vibrant scene. Justin Hosenek, who later founded Absinthe Films, was my roommate. The whole crew up in Summit County with guys like Dale Rayberg and Rowan Rogers, Nate Cole, Twist Clothing, Wave Rave. There was just so much happening out there, and it was all new, and everybody was just riding this wave of excitement with snowboarding. So I just took the leap. I just got out of my comfort zone, which is, I've kind of gone and done that several times in my life. I just say, all right, when I look back at my obituary at the end of verse, what do I want this story to be, and I just don't want to be complacent and stuck in the same thing. And I will continue to do this for the rest of my life, most likely, take some blind leaps of faith out there. But it just put me in an amazing environment with all of those people. And those friendships were forged in the mountains, in the snow, in those early days, which we're talking probably 90 through 93 was my Colorado time. And then from there, I moved up to Utah to snowbird. And then I was riding professionally as a snowboarder from like 93 to probably 98. I blew my knee out and I had to have ACL surgery. So that kind of put a little damper on that side of things. But it was, what had happened was because we were this young, pretty radical group of people growing up with this thing that we all were so passionate about and wanted to be involved in, everybody just started getting involved. People started making clothing companies. Hey, we'll make our own clothing company. Hey, we'll make a magazine. Hey, we'll make movies. And this is once again the DIY ethic. And it was coming out of, we were punks. Snowboarders were punks at that point. and those people became my network for where my launch pad was into snowboarding. Justin Hosenek from Absinthe was a huge, figure for me, bringing me under his wing, and, his vision for what snowboarding was, getting the best riders in the best conditions in the world, right? Settling for nothing less. It brought me into this whole group of the European crew and the North Americans, it was phenomenal. And that's kind of been my network from that point on. That led to me being a senior photographer at Snowboarder magazine. I was staff photographer at Volcom for the snow team. I worked with countless other companies. I would travel the world going to contests, in places like Japan and Germany and Austria and Australia. Like, I got to go do all this amazing stuff under that umbrella of snowboarding. And I'm incredibly grateful for it. There was so much progression happening at that time through the 90s. As soon as guys started spinning stuff sideways and off axis, misty flips at rodeos, it was just game on. It went from this kind of clunky, just a little bit spastic, style, into just like some heavy progression. And once that kicked in, it just, for the next probably 7-8 years, just absolutely went batshit. Our crew that I ended up landing with, like I said, the Absinthe crew, I'm riding with guys like this unknown kid, Travis Rice, who just shows up in our crew one day. Our friend Rich Goodwin was like, Jackson, he's really good, Nicholas Mueller, like a 16-year-old kid from Switzerland that can't even speak English. Wolfgang Neivelt, who's become one of my very, very best friends, through the whole path of my life. All of that crew was pushing things so hard. And it went from the parks and the mountains, to just hiking off, you know, side road backcountry stuff, to then us being in Alaska. And we had this idea of, hey, we're taking like freestyle riding to the big mountains, to the Alaskan terrain. You know, and we had Johan Olafsson, who kind of really lit a fire under things in TB5. And I think that just became what we're after. We're going to take, you know, switchback sevens onto mid-face up in Alaska, and we're going to film it from the helicopter with the doors off, and we're just going to blow minds. And it kind of happened. And I think when society at large embraces what a group like that is doing and is excited about it, then it gives the core group that's actually performing like that much more energy to do it, and to do it on a high level. I like to think of the Beatles in this kind of setting, where the Beatles were just a band, but everybody loved them and told them how great they were. But like, if the Beatles didn't have that stamp of approval from the whole world like they did, like, what would they have created? You know, but with the whole world just telling them how great they were and how everybody's just freaking out over them, you know, they come to embody that as well. And then I think that support from everybody pushes them to a whole nother level. And I think in a small way, we were kind of going through that with Absinthe Films, in and snowboarding in general, in that period through late 90s through 2005 or 2006. Like, the acceleration of the progression was just going nuts, and it was exciting. And the guys that were doing it, they were rock stars. You know, you go to Tokyo Dome with 50,000 people screaming, you know, or the Olympic Stadium in Munich for the air and style. It was a huge thing, and it's changed. You know, it's not like that anymore. It's still fantastic, but it's a different thing now. We were riding a zeitgeist, and that was a cultural zeitgeist with the board sports, with the music. They were cross-pollinating each other. There's absolutely no denying that the videos that came out with surf skate and snow movies in the 90s, with bands like Pennywise, Bad Religion, Nirvana, NoFX, Green Day, they lifted each other up, you know. And of course the music then becomes this amazing thing that's now like part of the you know, the historical classic music dialogue, you know, with those bands.
Absolutely. I vividly remember being a 13-year-old in 1995, putting in the VHS cassette of the latest snowboard movie you might have even created, and just getting so much inspiration on so many different levels. You know, I not being at the beach, wanted to be at the beach, but the mountains were close by, and there's some hills by my house. So when it snowed, I could get a taste of all that. Let's stick on this level of inspiration and the fact that when you're out there in this time, creating this content, you did not have anything else to look upon as a reference point, or to you're creating your own inspiration by where you are. So it's really super original art. Can you kind of let us into your head a little bit from that time, as far as what your creative process was? Did you have one, or did you just wing it? How did that go in the present moment then?
It was definitely part of a support system. Like I said, I still lacked self-confidence in me, kind of in what I did, you know, like I would often have to pinch myself, like, how did I get here with these guys? I don't deserve to be here, you know. Luckily I find out like a lot of people feel like that, you know, and that's why having the group, it's like insular, so it can really help out. But you know, I'll always mention Justin Hostenek. Justin had conviction and vision for things, and I was just in awe of how he pursued his artistic vision. He didn't let the money stop him. He would find the money to do things. He would shoot things on film, beautiful angles, working super hard. We Justin and I agree on a certain thing. We really love the aesthetic beauty of things. We love the really good light. We love the curves of the earth and the mountains and the ocean. And my directive that I've always had is that I like to see people integrating with what nature has to offer and showing where, like maximizing that potential of the two elements coming together, humanity and nature together. There's some people that are just like, where it's like porn style, it's like action, 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 and it's like showcasing the athlete, and it's just about the athlete, right? And how good they are and how they can overpower the natural terrain or this or that. And the way I see things is how can you use nature as a canvas to draw your lines while maintaining immense respect for that nature, and finding ways to make that happen. Getting up early for the incredible golden light, staying out till the very, very end with the golden light. Looking at features in the terrain and just trying to visualize how you can, use that terrain in a fresh way that we haven't seen before. And I just think when you put the best athletes, in the best terrain like that, and you just let them kind of do their thing, you end up with an incredible product that is bigger than the individual parts. And I still adhere to that now. Lighting for me is everything. There is no bad light. There's some harsh light, but you find ways to make it work. Maybe you switch over to black and white and you start composing things based off of contrast and stuff. But I still believe that I love, just like Mother Nature is the greatest artist, and I think it's a pure gift for us as humans to be able to take our passion and integrate with that. So I think I've kind of stuck with that as for my artistic drive. I also, at the root of it, I consider myself a photojournalist. I'm somebody that can get to those places that a lot of people can't get to and document that. And that's changed over the last decade with phones and with Instagram, because everybody has that camera with them. And that's kind of been a struggle for me to adapt to that, where like I was a photojournalist, I was going these places, but now it's like the riders and the athletes and everybody else around, everybody has a camera all the time. So you have to find a new way to make that work for you, under those confines. But
let me jump in real quick on that point and what you led up to that point. So a lot of what I've seen from your work is very, artistic. You're pulled back from the situation, but you allow everything between you and the subject to gather a mirage of beauty. Case in point, the picture I saw most recently you took of Mason Barnes at that outer reef. From a distance, you're on a cliff. The wave looks big, but you don't realize how big it is. I mean, I saw the Instagram video. That wave was all of 100 feet, possibly. He paddled into, the face of it. It was gnarly. The picture you took, though, gave it this like calm essence. And it wasn't until you zoomed in on the matter face, when you really got into it, that you realized how intense that was. A couple other ones I really enjoyed, where you're pulled back mountain shots with a lot of texture of the hills. Then you have your little tiny people enjoying it. That draws a lot of energy into my soul when I see something like that. And then, following up now to your point, as far as people with their phones and whatnot, yeah, they can have a mechanical device with them, but they don't have that, thousands and thousands of hours of background work to then pull out a shot like that. So I just want to give you a big up in respect on that matter. For those listening, down below, I will post your Instagram feed for everyone to check out, but much respect there.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. You know, and and sometimes you second guess yourself all the time.
All artists do, don't we?
Yeah.
We need others to say that whatever, but again, it's us who decide. As Andy Warhol said, you know, you're the decider, and if you put a mark on this page here and call it done, well, that's done. And so it goes too with the photography, I believe.
It does, you know, and like I said, I like seeing humans interact with nature, and that's why I will do the pulled back stuff a lot of times, you know. You know, as far as the athletes go, there's always going to be somebody better. Somebody else is going to come along. You're going to have your time, and maybe you're the best, but someday you won't be. And there's really nothing I hate more than an arrogant prick that thinks that they are the shit and they're better than all of it, and it's all about them. Because time's just going to pass, dude, and you're just going to become somebody else. It's having that humbleness and the respect for the terrain, whether it's the ocean or the mountains or whatever. Those are the riders and the surfers that I identify with personally. Yes, I like some of the arrogant, burning hot rock stars and what they do, but I don't want to be them. You know, you know, their burnout is going to be a lot more painful when their ego comes crashing down. I really like the ones that are calm and that burn bright but burn evenly and slow. You know, it's same with music. You know, it's like, you know, it is, everybody loves the rock stars. You know, they're colorful, you know, but it's but it really is just the interaction, and we're just incredibly fortunate and lucky to be able to experience these things that we do on the level that we do them. I mean, surfing is so mind-blowing. You know, you're looking at like living waves of energy passing through this liquid medium that is the ocean, and then they hit the shoreline, and then they've reached the end of their life cycle, but then we get to ride them. It's just like, it's not to get like cosmic and psychedelic, but it really is mind-blowing. And I was telling this to my daughter the other day. We were up on the mountainside across from Pipeline. This building swelled. It was during the Pipe Masters, and we're just watching corduroy lines come in from every direction. Whales jumping, all kinds of stuff going on. And I said to her, I said, look, these waves that we see right here, these are the same things as sound waves and all these energy waves that go on around us all day long in the world. But we can't see them. We can't see sound waves, but you can look at the ocean and see cleanly groomed long interval swell. And if you were to translate that to music, that would be this really nice, balanced, kind of rhythmic music coming at you. Whereas if you take like a choppy wind swell and it's stormy and it's just all this cross phasing and stuff, you can relate that to sound, where if you're in a shitty room and there's just sound waves bouncing everywhere, it creates all this phase and just chaos, you know, even certain kinds of music which are designed like that. And if you were to make it so you could see the sound waves, they'd look like a choppy ocean, right? And the fact that we can see the waves in the ocean, feel them coming, ride them, duck up, get under inside them in the barrel, it's just, it'll never cease to amaze me for as long as I live, like for actually how amazing this planet that we live on is. And as surfers, what we get to do, you know, and transferring that over to snow, it's different. It's the systems come in and they dump they have all the kinetic energy in there with the storm, but then they dump it and then they canvas the earth. They highlight, you know, the turf. Most of the time we're riding a static environment. You do get your situations where if you pop off a slough or avalanche, all of a sudden it's coming after you, you know, and it's chasing you, and then you've activated again by interacting with it. But there's just, you know, for me, just being out in those kind of elements is really what it's all about. You know, I hope to do it for the rest of my life.
I love what you just did there, comparing a clean powder day to a clean surfing day, and how the two just mingle aesthetically together so perfectly. Beautifully said. Uh, I have so many questions for you. I know we're not going to be able to get to them, so I want to kind of nail down these few that that I kind of think are most important.
Great.
When you go to you've been all over the world surfing and shooting amazing breaks. Specifically now you're at Pipeline, and I've seen your work most recently. You're in the channel. You're in the action at one of the most intense surf spots in the world, for the environment and for the amount of people involved in the situation, surfers, photographers. Can you kind of speak to those who haven't had this experience, and kind of paint the picture as to what that's like, from rolling up on the beach to surveying the ocean to deciding where it is you were going to enter, because all of those decisions could either maximize a session to getting epic material, or to death. You know, a lot of photographers have died at Pipe. So can you kind of bring that to our mental space?
So this came from a lifetime of me shooting surfing. You know, I was 16 when I had my first photo published in Surfer magazine. And then I swam. I was shooting water photos pretty much almost all my life. But I didn't touch Pipeline for years, years and years.
So you would go to Hawaii and not touch Pipeline?
Yeah, I'd shoot it from the land. It took me a bit. You know, there's a lot of legend and lore, and I mean, Pipeline's just, it's an entity in its own, you know, and I have an immense amount of respect for it. I have an immense amount of respect for those of me that came before me and have shot it, and the ones that do it now on a high level. Also for the surfers that do it. You know, it's good to be scared of it, I think. So I eventually worked my way up to it, but I'd be out here for years shooting, and I would just watch the currents. I would watch where people jumped in, how far down the beach they got sucked, you know, how they were trying to come in, where the waves are breaking, what the swells were doing. You know, if there's some north in the swell, it's pinching on the end and the photographers are getting smoked. If it's a nice clean west swell, then it can be a little bit more friendly and easier to get out. I mean, there's times when you can't even get out. You know, you jump in like 300 feet up the beach, and then you get sucked all the way past the Volcom House and then down towards the lifeguard tower and Gums, and then you just get your ass beat, and even at times pushed back to the beach, you know. So it's really important to a wave like that, and a lot of the other heavier waves of consequence, to respect what the ocean is doing. Because I mean, man, you can get in trouble. You can get in trouble pretty damn quick. So I really kind of studied it as much as I could. And I do it now. You know, I watch it. You know, I rarely just run up there in the morning and go out. I stop and watch, and I kind of see what's going on. I see what the sets are doing. And then when I'm feeling good about it, I go out. You know, I'm out in way bigger stuff than I probably ever thought I would be out there. But you know, once I'm out there, it's actually quite comfortable. Not being tethered to a surfboard is nice, and having the flippers on, I can get around pretty easy. I still get bounced off the bottom here and there. I wear a helmet like a lot of us out there. You have to navigate the currents. Some days the current's pulling you into the pit. Other days it's pulling you away from there. I personally really have to focus and pay attention when I'm out there, not just to get the shot that I want, but to not get pulled into a bad spot. You know, and then you're out there, you're navigating other kinds of 75 surfers, you know, running over your head almost, you know. On some days there's like 20 photographers out there, you know, and what do you want? What image do you want to get? You know, you can put yourself further outside and try to get shots off the peak. You can end up with a lot of people's heads in the way. Obviously, as photographers, we try to have a clean shot where we're getting a wave and the surfer and not a bunch of other people there. So sometimes that means me going and hanging on the inside, you know, and going under more waves so that I can kind of get a cleaner shot without people in there. The great thing these days, which there's a nice camaraderie of the photographers out in the water at Pipe. To me, it seems that anybody that's out there shooting these days does it because they love it, because it's their passion. Nobody's making a lot of money. You know, there might be a couple of guys that are really, you know, surviving off of that, but all in all, people are out there because they love it, you know. And I see guys like Brian Bielman, who's been shooting since the 70s, and he'll be out there still, and he loves it. He's like a kid, you know, all the way down to like the new 15-year-old kid that's swimming out to shoot. So I feel like that's something that's changed in this era of digital media, and where photos don't really have the value like they used to do. So people aren't competitive, like, oh, you're in my spot, I'm getting the shot, you're shooting with this dude. And that tension that used to be there, I think, is more just like you're among other people that are like-minded, that are willing to swim out there and be out there and capture that vision that they have of Pipeline and witness it from that close. So there's some great people out there, and it's a pretty supportive environment. I just don't, you know, there's very few people that really guard their secrets like they used to do. So, but it's, you know, there's a lot of mutual respect among people, because it still is a pretty heavy thing to be out there. And at some point you're going to pay the price. You know, you can go for 5 days and just, you know, be just swimming around out there and everything's great, but you're going to get hit out there for sure. So it's not the kind of place you rush out to. It's not for everybody. I come from a lifetime of being in the water, and I try to apply everything that I have when I'm out there. Anybody that wants to get into that kind of thing, it's just spend time in the water at your local spots with your friends that surf, you know, shooting on smaller scale stuff, and work out your stuff, work out your equipment, and just know your limits. You don't have to do anything. And that goes for all of this subject matter that we deal with, right? You got to work within your comfort level, and everybody's comfort level is different. And there's nothing is worth putting yourself, you know, at risk for death if you can't handle it. You know, it's just, you got to like follow your intuition and your gut. And I mean, there's definitely days when I'm just like, I'm not swimming out there. You know, I can see how this is going to go, and I'm going to get pounded, and I'm going to get dragged down there through the sandbar, you know, or this or that, and the currents are wrong or the angle's wrong. So you just got to trust yourself and trust your intuition and work your way up to it. And patience is so important. Patience is important in life in general, you know, especially for spazzes like me that are ADHD, and I'm just like, I want to do everything, you know. When I start hitting that upper spectrum, I just like want to everything all at once. But you know, I got to kind of tamper that down sometimes.
You're a businessman. You understand money, and you've lived in the world a long time. How do you view the current state of journalism in the surfing and snowboarding world today? And for young people who might want to view that as a career, what is your advice, and what would you say to the financial side of things and making it a job?
Don't get into it for the money. You know, you can end up making money at it, but you got to do it because you love it. And then once you want to do it for money, then you got to really your passion intact. You can, like, mingling the business and the money side of things with your art and your passion can all but kill it sometimes. It really can. And some of the idiots that you have to deal with people just taking your photos and using them without even asking, and then, you know, and then trying to get money out of people. And the surf industry is tough, you know. It's like, because everybody wants to be there doing it, you know. And so like, oh, it'll give you good exposure and this and that, you know. You just have to kind of do what you do because you love it, and, you know, and diversify. Try to bring a perspective that is your perspective and is how you see things. Of course, we're inspired by other people, and it's great to have those inspirations and people to look up to, but we're humans, so we all have a unique individual perspective from our personal environments that we grew up on. So bring that to your photography. And don't just make it all action, action, action. Show the portraits, you know, shoot the portraits, show your friends, capture the emotional component of things. At the end of the day, I really think it's the emotional component that resonates with your viewers. You know, you're going to have, you know, your A+ action, which is always going to be awe-inspiring stuff. But I really believe that people want to identify with that emotional component, and they want to travel to that place that you're at through your camera and through your images. And that's always been my goal, you know, is like bringing my friends and my family to these places where I'm at that they can't go to, and sharing that, you know. And that's the photojournalistic side of me too, you know, but it's an artistic journalistic side of me that, you know, I want to show them what I see. So it really kind of comes down to bringing your perspective, look at different ways that you can do it. I'm not saying go shoot weddings, because that's like was the boringest thing ever for me to go do that. You can go and chase money with photography, and if it works for you, great. But I have to do it still within my passion realm. But the people, the places, there's a lot of avenues within that you can diversify and make yourself more valuable to people in what you offer. Even shooting video is a great talent to have along with that. Writing stuff, you know, being like a one-man show where you're there and you can take a photo and then you can write like little stories about it for people that need it, you know, any kind of magazines or websites. The more you can offer to people, the more valuable you're going to be. And that's also, it's just, I guess, just kind of work with the people that you know in your network and show the world how you see the world.
Epic advice, Scott. So prudent to young people of all ages involved in this passion, artistic process that is photography. I know you got a family to get to right now. I want to ask you one more question. Let's go real deep. What is your meaning of life?
The meaning of life for me is to bring joy and happiness and education to people. Becoming a father really showed me the true meaning of love that I'd never experienced ever in this life. And having the children is a sense of hope. And it's like bringing your best friend to your hometown and you just want to show them all the cool stuff of that, except when you're a dad, you're just like, I want to show you the world, you know, and the way I've seen the world. And, you know, I was older when I had kids. I was 36 when I had my first daughter, and she's 16 now. So I had kind of had a pretty, you know, full life at that point, and I was ready to do it. But to me, I mean, at the most basic level, we're here as a species to propagate our species, you know, and what that species becomes, you know, obviously it's pretty chaotic, but I try to shine somebody in education through that. And I think it's cliche, but it is the hope of the future to teach the young kids growing up, show them a better world and show them the positive side of it, because we can get bogged down in the negative, especially with what the kids have to deal with these days with the social networks, Instagram and everything, and this perfect world that all these people are portraying, which is just bullshit. And the kids get caught up in it and they think that they're worthless because of all these other people that they're seeing on their device. I think it's a terrible, terrible thing like that. The web and the socials, they're a tool to be used. They're not like they're not about teaching you how to be who you are. That's for damn sure. So at the root of it, I think all we can do is be true to ourselves, find out what is true to us as an individual, and how we can walk from day to day and look people in the eye and introduce yourself and make friends and say, hey, this is me. Hi, I'm Scott. What's your name? And know that I'm true to me and I'm a good person and I'm not, I don't harbor any bad intentions against you. So I fit in, and the people that identify with me, then we're going to become friends, right? The people that don't, hey, it's okay. It doesn't mean that I'm no good. That's just, we don't connect like that. So I just think trying to be true to yourself like that, and pursuing what you love as best you can, and creating positive energy out of that, and bringing that positive energy to the world. That's one of the greatest things about surfing, I think, is that, and snowboarding, they're selfish activities, right? But I had a friend, Andrew Kidman, great Australian filmmaker, artist, and we were talking about this one day, and I was like, God, it's so selfish. All we do is go out there and we just want to catch waves and get more waves than the other guy and this and that. I'm like, where's the good side of it? And he was like, you go in the water and you do your best to have a good session, and then you come out onto land and you take that positive energy that you gained and then you spread that around to people, and that's like really about the best thing we can do, is just little bits of positivity within our own personal sphere of influence. And that sphere of influence can start with your family, your friends, your community, and then radiate out from there. I don't think it's humanly feasible for any human to try to tackle the world's problems and be like, I'm going to fix everything on this massive scale. We start here on our own doorstep, and that's where we have our influence, and we go from there. And I just think it's a great way to live your life. Don't try to screw other people over. Realize we all have good days and bad days. When you're having your bad days, maybe you just need a little break and you just need to take your time away from people, and it's okay. We all can't be perfect all the time. But it's okay to take that break and not kick yourself for being negative and being down. Just accept that that's part of the ebb and flow of being a human. We're not computers, we're not a straight line. And the artistic bunch, like we have pretty big highs and lows, and you just got to not kick yourself in that. Don't fall into drugs and alcohol as a crutch to like make yourself feel better, because that's a long dark road that just gets darker the more you go into it. So at the end of the day, I think it's all about love, really. Feeling the love, feeling the universal love, feeling the love from people, giving out the love you can. And when you can't, just rest.
So incredibly well said, man. This entire interview, I've just been getting so much inspiration from you, and hearing about your life and how you see the world has just been an incredible experience for me personally. And I know for those watching, whoever listens to this in the future will also feel the same way. So with that said, thank you so incredibly much for your valuable time today on the North Shore. And cheers, my man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really nice for me to even be with you on this, and have you ask me. It's an honor for sure. Just doing what I do. You're on the other side of the other side of the world practically at this point, to be able to communicate like this and just share these little ideas. And I hope that I can inspire people that are trying to find their path. I'm 52 years old now, and it's taken me a life to get to where I am, and it's not over yet. Like the kids think that we're all adults, but dude, it's our first time through this whole crazy show anyway. So it's like we're all just figuring it out, and if anything I can take from what I've learned through my trials and tribulations, and if somebody can gain something from that and get some stoke and passion to go after their dreams, then hey man, that's what it's all about. I get it from other people, and if I can take that and give that to somebody else, then it just all keeps going. So thank you so much from the land of aloha in Hawaii. Positive vibes to all of you out there, and just follow your dreams and stay on your path, because this is your life and you got one life to live. Be positive and spread the good vibes.
And thank you for putting up with my family in the background. I'm trying to do this multitasking thing and not let the hold me back. For those of you listening on Apple Podcast, that's son Augustus in the background. He's 2 years old, and I think we've reached our 60-minute limit with the young fella. So
all right.
Yeah, Scott, I'm really happy we've been able to meet, and I hope we can meet in person someday. And I'm definitely going to stay in contact with you if that's all right with you.
Yeah, I'll be back in the New England for the hurricane season next year. I religiously jam back there when we get some big swell coming up the East Coast. Go visit all my family and stuff. It's still back there, so we're in the hood. Let's stay in touch, and love to throw some high fives in person.
Sick. Last question. P.S. What's your spot in New England? What's your number one spot? Give a shout out.
The whole crew down in Narragansett, Rhode Island, going all the way back to the days of the Watershed with Peter Pan and Dave Levy, the Milletta brothers, just the whole crew back there, Bobby Kelly, Ed Logie, rest in peace. The whole crew, guys, are dear in my heart. I love going back there, and I always appreciate going back there and feeling the love that you guys give me when I come home. And these days I get to bring my daughters back with me because they're into surfing now, and we surf back there. And we love it, get back there for some waves and some good old New England clam cakes and iced coffee, right? So shout out to all the homies back there.
So sick, so sick. Well, y'all, that's a wrap. Episode 10, speaking from water with the legendary Scott Sullivan himself. And please smash up the likes, push subscribe, all those things if you like. And much respect to everyone out there. And that's a wrap. Scott, I'm probably gonna I gotta get it together.